very thanks for inviting me on this podcast. It's really exciting to do this with you. So I'm Kevin. I'm running a YouTube channel also. That's where I knew Mary from. And while she's into biomedical engineering, I'm into biomedical science. I studied 5 years for that, a bachelor's and a master's here in Belgium. So I'm Belgian, by the way. Um, Note on that, French fries, no. Belgian fries, for starters. Uh,
Oh,
so,
so there's two different types of fries in Belgium? Is that what you're saying?
but it's just, I think culture-wise they call them French fries, but I think it's a Belgian product. I don't know why the
Oh,
French like
I
pulled
see.
that
Okay, I know what you're saying now. Okay, okay. Wow, that's
So
interesting.
yeah,
So right now we were just talking about languages because I was
yeah.
looking it up. I was like, I wonder what his first language is because is Spanish because I'm from Mexico. And then I looked it up and I saw Belgium has three languages and I was like, whoa, like that's amazing. And you, Kevin, you said you speak Dutch, but he just impressed me right now with some French, so
Ouh,
that was really
yeah, yeah. Petit peu. Mais ma prononciation, c'est assez
fantastic.
bien. Donc, non, non, pas fantastique, mais assez bien. Je sais parler français petit peu et la prononciation, c'est bon. Comme ça.
I don't even know how to respond to that. Like I can't
Now,
talk like
now it's your turn.
I mean I can introduce myself like bonjour tout le monde, je suis Mary et nous sommes ici avec Kevin. That's it.
Well, actually, how you pronounce, if you would pronounce my name in French, it would sound like Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it pronounced differently in Dutch?
Um, let's say more or less of an emphasis on Kevin. It's like Kevin, more flattened off. It
Okay.
just yeah,
In, in Spanish, there's like Kevin.
Kevin, well, with the V being more like a B sound. No.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's, I guess, in Spanish we're really lazy on the difference between the two B's. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Okay, but okay. So I guess you just introduced. I have the outline right here. We just went over the introduction. So I guess we can just jump right into the questions. Um,
Sure.
First question is, why did you choose biomedical science?
Oh, why did I choose this? So we're talking about going back to my mindset of roughly 12 to 13 years ago. So I think the main question that I always had is why do people get sick? And actually understanding how it works on a molecular level, on a level that you can't see where the disease comes from. So that's a bit different maybe than someone looking to get into medicine because they're already thinking about how can I cure it. Now, for me, it was also an issue, but the understanding was like more the main goal for me. How does this body work? Because it's an amazing machine, how it functions in itself. So if it functions in disease, dysfunctions actually. So how does that go? That was really intriguing to me. And I've always liked biology, chemistry, a little bit less physics and mathematics, and that kind of like drove me towards life science. I think it's the other way around for you, perhaps, with the engineering.
Yeah, no, actually, that's really interesting because I started college 2 years. I had no idea what I wanted to do, like absolutely
Okay.
no idea. My parents, especially my dad, had always pressured me into going to medicine because he's a doctor. So I'm the first
Okay.
child. So he always, kind of wanted all of us to be doctors. And I'm just like, that's not really for me because um, I don't know. I've always wanted to have a family, and I don't want to say like, oh, he's absent or anything, but he does work a lot, and I just didn't see myself doing that.
Yeah.
But I still was interested in the field. But anyway, I had like no idea what I wanted to do. But in the US, like, you're required to take some basic courses. So no matter what major you do, you have to take science, politics, history, things like that. So when
Okay.
I was taking my science courses, I chose biology. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I've taken it before in high school, and I did like science before, but when I was reading like my biology book, it was just amazing to me to learn about our body and how it functions, and just all the little components that go into it, and just like, it's just so crazy that so many little things work in our body and we don't even
Mm-hmm.
realize it. And it's like
Yeah.
a whole new world inside. And so I like that science background. And then I was always really good at math. And people had told me, like, why don't you do engineering? But when people
Yeah.
said engineering, I always pictured a guy fixing a car. Like, I thought
Yeah.
that's what engineering was. I was
Classic.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, I don't want to be an engineer. Like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I guess I started talking to people in engineering. I was like, oh, okay, it's not just fixing a car. Like, it's more about coming up with solutions and things like that. And then when I heard about the existence of biomedical engineering, I was like, oh, that's really cool because, I like science and then I also like math. So I guess I'm choosing this.
But based on what you said just now, so the first part that you like the science and stuff,
Yeah.
you didn't hear about biomedical science before that?
I'd never heard about biomedical science until I found your channel.
So they don't offer it in you're in San Antonio, right? So
Yes, I don't know. They probably offer it, to be honest.
okay.
What I've seen a lot is a major called life sciences.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, yeah.
I don't
That's
know if it's the same one.
you can group it under there. So that's a big thing actually that I try to explain also on my channel is that the semantics are quite disturbing in some cases because yeah, let's say if you're a biomedical scientist in the UK, for instance, you
Mhm.
can either follow a course that's directed for you to get into a hospital lab, and you
Mhm.
need accreditation for that. So you need to be compliant with a certain standard of skills so you can operate on patient samples. So in the UK, then you're a biomedical scientist. The equivalent of that in the US and most of the other countries is medical lab technician, MLT. So it gets confusing sometimes there. I see a lot of viewers on my channel are UK based or US based also. And I'm really trying to explain the difference there and the little nuances, and that you should be careful in evaluating the course that the university offers in terms of is it more focused on getting into the hospital kind of lab, or are you more into research focus, staying in academia with all the other options of getting into industry, all the things that I list also on some videos on my channel. And I think we'll get into that later on this podcast. Also, is the jobs, of course. Um, so yeah, it's surprising that's surprising and not surprising because I think biomedical engineering is also, let's say, fairly young.
It
And
is, and I actually wanted to ask you: is biomedical science, like, has it been around for a while, or is it also like pretty?
here in Belgium, it exists now for 20 years.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
okay,
it's been implemented in the year 2000. I started it in 2007. So
okay.
yeah, I'm that old. I'm a dinosaur almost.
No,
uh, I think I didn't mention my age in the introduction,
I
so
guess.
that makes me 30 years old.
Wow.
How
Honestly,
old?
yeah, I was wondering how old you are because I knew you were doing your PhD. So
Yeah,
most people do bachelor's and then PhD right away. So I was like, okay, he's like in his 20s. But then I saw somewhere that you had 5 years of industry experience, and I was like, what?
yeah,
Like, where are those
yeah.
years? Like, you look very young. I mean, 30 is very young. But yeah, that's amazing that you have so much experience.
Yeah, it was great experience. Yeah, I think we'll go deeper into that also
Yes.
in a while. So yeah, um,
Okay, well, okay. The next thing I know, you mentioned why you decided to go into biomedical science, but have you always been interested in science? Like, do you think that if you looked back to where when you were 10, do you think that you could tell that you liked science back then?
huh, I think I'll answer this maybe by saying that I think every kid is a scientist
Okay.
in or at least a researcher
Uh-huh.
because you have that innate curiosity as a child.
Mhm.
So you're constantly exploring things, right? Everything is new, and I think yeah, as you grow up, perhaps some people lose that mindset a bit.
Yeah.
So it always stayed for me, being curious. I love to learn, learn new skills, learn new stuff, how things work in general. Not only science, I look into things like history as well, just try to make a big picture of everything that goes on in the world. Like at age 27, I had a huge epiphany on finances, and I was like getting into stocks and getting my personal finance together, and also triggered by my job function in biotech because you learn more on how stocks like work, or you get options to buy some stocks, or yeah, that was really interesting. So coming back to me as a kid, 10 years old, I was probably climbing trees and skateboarding. Um, and yeah, the you have these courses like in your what's it called, lower school, or how do you call this in
Uh-huh.
the US?
Um, in the US,
Not
it's elementary.
elementary school, yeah, like
Yes.
that. So yeah, the more scientific topics I always liked, and the mathematics. I remember being good at math, at least in those years, and my interest in math like declined to the minimum almost. I barely made it through my final exams in the last year of high school. I was just bored out of it. So also maybe drove me a bit to biomedical science and not engineering as such.
Yeah.
But yeah, the innate curiosity and yeah, the science, its attitude, its pragmatic attitude also. Like you have a hypothesis, and then you have a methodology, and then yeah, you get your results and discussion. So it's very pragmatic, and I like the logic part and the realistic attitude and the culture about it of being a scientist, science as a whole. So yeah, I think I'm in the right place by choosing science.
That's good. No, that's good that you chose a career that you like and that you have a passion for, and it's what you're doing on YouTube. It's awesome. I think we're both kind of
Thanks.
doing the same thing,
Yeah.
trying to just inform people about our field. And we actually have two people right now joining a chat. It's Ragul and
Well,
Daryl Simon.
there's 8 people watching.
Oh, there's 8 people
Oh,
watching
cool.
actually.
Cool. Hi,
But we
guys.
have 2 people on the chat, so thank you guys for joining. But actually going into the YouTube channel thing, what made you decide to start a channel? And when
Yeah.
did you start it, by the way?
I think I submitted the channel in November 18.
Okay.
And my first video upload, it's the clip where with the doodle kind of thing, where I explain should you study biomedical science? That's the question and the title of the video. I think I
And that's your
uploaded that.
most watched, right?
Yeah, it's the most watched one. Yeah. I think I uploaded that somewhere in December of 2018, something like that. And why I started it is, yeah, largely also why we're having this conversation now is to give the biomedical field to spread the knowledge about it, for attracting young kids that are attracted to science, maybe life science, but don't know really which specific branch they should take. So that's one thing, to inspire youngsters, let's say, and then yeah,
Mhm.
support throughout your studies. because yeah, I'm 30 years old. I have 5 year biotech experience. I have some PhD experience. I went to 5 years of studying those courses. So at some point, in the beginning in life, you're like constantly learning, and then at some point you should never stop learning, by the way. So the learning is constant, but at some point you gain enough, let's say, skills and knowledge and experience that it's worthwhile to consider being a teacher also and share your experience and knowledge. So that was also a motivator for me. And I think the main drive was that because the as we talked just now, that it's a fairly young degree, let's say. um, it's not as recognized yet as it should be by employers,
That's true.
and that's something that's frustrating for a lot of people, young people that started. Also, I think I explain in one of my videos on careers, where I give examples of where you can end up in a job type with the biomedical science degree, and where they list they ask for a degree in life science or biotech or equivalent. So the umbrella term or equivalent, the biomedical science is in there. So why not recognize the degree as such and just put it in the description?
Yeah.
It was the same with my biotech employer where I worked 5 years. They didn't ask for my specific degree, but I got in anyway. So maybe we can get back to that later on, or maybe just now, just touch it a little bit. Is that it's a base education that you do. If you're a biomedical engineer or biomedical technologist, or your 5 years of study is a base education, and you have perspectives from starting from there. So
Yeah.
that's also what I mean, that you should never stop learning. You can always kind of grow and keep going at it if you're ambitious. And maybe at some point in your career, you can like get stuck. I mean, not in a bad way, but maybe um, find your anchor, let's say, and say, for me, this is good. I'm at the level where I want. And then you don't need to grow, or maybe life interferes and you have a family and you want to take it more slow because your career cannot take the ambition. There's so many different factors. So uh, yeah, and I kind of lost now where we started off with the
No, that's good.
question. So you
No,
should moderate me, Mary, if I rattle too much. I said it.
that's totally fine. And I think the comment right now on display is actually a really good point. Ida, thank you for commenting.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
child is a scientist, what you said. And I was actually thinking of that right now because um, I think, we want to inform people of the field. And right now, YouTube is like a huge platform. Like everyone is on
Yeah.
YouTube, and like there's all sorts of things on YouTube. Like I think it mainly started as like there's gaming, there's makeup, there's
Hmm.
whatever, but
Cat
the
videos.
science, yeah, a lot of cat videos. But I think in the science department it's definitely still lacking. I mean, there's a lot of like
Yeah.
educational videos, like say like on biology or math or things like that, but we're lacking videos on letting people see what their life would be like maybe if they decided to choose this career path, and I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
really important because at least when I started BME, I didn't really know what to expect from it. Like I chose it because I liked it. I liked the major itself, but I didn't
Hmm.
know what my life after school could look like.
Yeah.
And when I started getting more into it, I started finding out about it. But I think it's really important to put these things out there because some people, like you said, kids are curious, like, and
Yeah.
if we can show them this is something you can do, like science is here, it's not all about you know gaming, then
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
True.
nice.
True. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
true. Well, I actually, I don't know if you ever, I probably not, because I don't put this public on my channel. My LinkedIn profile. I have a
Hmm.
LinkedIn profile. You don't know my last name, I think. So,
I
um,
saw it on Facebook, but
yeah, yeah, of course, yeah. So you can check me on LinkedIn. Actually, there's a section where you can describe your volunteer work, let's say.
okay.
And 3 years in a row, I actually participated in a program where for one day we could visit the last year of elementary school, so kids age 11, 12, let's say, and we were able to perform small experiments in the classroom to get them hyped up about life science and biotechnology. So basically, it's extracting DNA from some fruit, like
Oh,
a
cool.
banana or a kiwi or anything like that. And that was really cool, actually, to also inspire kids from that age on. Like you say, yeah, if you can make a difference, uh,
Yeah.
amping them up from such an early age, that's really cool. And also what we do with this channel, even if it's only touching, let's say, 5 people, to inspire them to get into it, I think it's worthwhile. I also go to these let's say high school end days where students ask for information on which major should I take. That's also something I do. So I maybe, according to my girlfriend, maybe sometimes overly active with my passion and promotion for biomedical science and research. But yeah, I do what I want.
No, that's awesome. And so you go to high schools to talk about it? Is that?
I did this 3 times already,
Oh,
and
okay.
actually I was going to do this, I think, somewhere last week or last 2 weeks. But yeah, Corona. So
What? Yeah. So do you do it on your own, or do you work with a company that does that, or how does that work?
no, this is basically the first time I was invited by someone who also did a PhD and actually was an alumni at that high school, and they
Oh,
needed some extra people for the biomedical science. So yeah, I put on my shirt and
okay.
I was going in. So yeah, and
Okay.
I convinced some people over there. So we'll see. I also gave them the links to the Biomed channel last year.
That's awesome. And
Yeah, cool.
actually, touching on, you going to schools and talking about, or your volunteer experience, I don't have much volunteer experience, but I do have this one that I'll never forget. I think it wasn't last summer, but the one before. I volunteered at this like camp for engineering for kids, and they were probably also like around 12, or I would say
Yeah.
like, yeah, around the same age. And it was really interesting because you would think most kids are there because their parents just want them to do something, so they take them to these camps. But this kid really
Mm-hmm.
impressed me because he's like, "Yeah, I already have an idea on an insulin. What did he say? Like a minimal invasive insulin pump that goes implanted in the body. I don't know, something like
Cool.
that, something crazy
Cool.
like that. I was like, kid,
Yeah.
why are you thinking of this? Like, you're so young. Like, that is impressive. So it's really nice to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
kids do that.
Actually, so research has shown that they're most influential to stimulate them to get into science, to put them over the threshold if they're still doubting, to inspire them at that age, that particular
Wow,
age, 11 to 12. That's the target age where you should do it, actually.
nice.
Yeah, and maybe a cool anecdote also related to my channel, because you talked about a kid being smart at some age. I have this one fan on my channel, Alessandro. If he's watching, he will watch this afterwards, probably somewhere. Shout out to you. He's always very active, commenting on everything I do. And he's 14 or 15 years old, and he's already picturing himself as being CEO, and he's very busy,
Wow,
very busy with already planning his future. So it does me very well to see that I can continue to inspire him on that track that he's on, and I think he will be very suited for a career in science somewhere, hopefully biomedical or life science, pharmaceutical type of stuff. So yeah, the whole online thing that we do, it's also very satisfactory, I think.
yes, definitely. No,
Yeah,
that's an awesome testimony. um There's Daryl Simon asked a question,
yeah,
and we're actually going into that question
yeah,
anyway, so
yeah,
I guess we
yeah.
can jump into it.
If
What
you're
are the
patient.
differences?
Oh,
Yes.
we're going to it right now.
Um, we can, yeah, we can answer it right now, I think.
Sure.
So I think it's it might be a little tricky to answer that question because I think we both know the two separate answers because we're both in one field and one in the
Yeah.
other. So I think you commented on a comment that I left on someone that asked the same question, like what are the differences
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
fields?
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I said I think
Shoot.
I think biomedical no sorry yeah biomedical science, well, I would say they're like sister fields, if you will. They're very similar in, or I guess let's talk about what kind of courses did you see in your degree?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's start there.
Um, okay, let's start at year one. So maybe first mention this also that I think this also applies for biomedical engineering. From what I did on my own in terms of research, looking into universities globally, how they structure their program in biomed. There's tons of different setups depending on country or even within a country depending on which university. So there's
Mhm.
like common courses, but some focus, for instance, more in the masters to graduate in a certain biological field, while others would say, okay, you go for research or more industry or more teaching or stuff like that. So, in terms of my experience back in 2007, my first year was very theoretical, and it consisted of everything that you saw in high school being repeated in terms of chemistry, physics, organic chemistry, biology with a focus on parasites also,
Mhm.
anatomy, introduction again to the protein synthesis, so the central dogma of DNA, RNA to protein. And then in second semester of first year, we already had some more applied courses like physiology, some mathematics, which was minor, good.
So, what kind of math did you see? I'm curious.
What kind of maths did I see? So first year only was maths in terms of general maths. So differentials, integrals.
Oh, okay. That's, I mean, I wasn't expecting that. To me, if you're seeing integrals, that's pretty advanced math, in
Yeah,
my opinion. Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah. You can apply integrals in all types of curves, I guess. So
Yes.
yeah, in some curves you would plot from biological science, from biological data also.
Mm-hmm.
Do I use this? No. Uh, Probably because it's embedded in like software of GraphPad. So
Yeah.
I can't, don't ask me to solve an integral or a differential right now. I cannot help you. I swear to God. um, but yeah, like matrix
Okay. Yeah.
mathematics, rows, functions, of course. So that's like
You're
graph.
basically a biomedical engineer.
I beg to differ.
I'm just kidding.
uh,
No, but that
yeah,
sounds like really advanced math. Like it is.
yeah.
I
Well,
wasn't expecting that.
I did in high school. I graduated in sciences mathematics. So I had 7 hours a week of mathematics in year five and six. I think U.S. high schools are
Four
differently
years.
organized. Yeah, 4 years. You have what is it? Junior, sophomore, senior,
It's freshman, sophomore, junior,
freshman.
senior.
Yeah, okay. And then you have proms and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually didn't have any because I went to a high school of like less than 80 people. So it was like a
Okay.
tiny school. But
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So we're digressing a little bit,
Yeah.
but so everything I saw of mathematics in those 7 hours a week end of high school thing was also repeated in that course in one semester in first year of uni. Not as elaborate in terms of the amount of exercises and stuff like that, but we had to repeat it all, and I had to pass that, and I marginally passed with a 10 out of 20, so I had 50%. But that's also maybe something that I can say to anyone who's watching now is that your first year in uni, um, yeah, it's you need to adapt. You just
Yes.
simply need to adapt to the way of studying, and some people can't, and they flunk and they can't proceed, or some people do adapt and then they can grow into it. And
Mhm.
that's what happened to me. I learned how to study more on the uni level, and then the first year was so theoretical and more or less abstract and a bit repetitive of everything that you saw in high school. But then year two was so fascinating. Molecular biology, biochemistry, protein chemistry, genetics, all of the medical science, anatomy, histology, physiology of every organ system. Yeah, and then I was like studying to you had to get me away from the books almost. So,
Wow. Did you get a lot of like lab experience while you were
mm.
in your undergrad?
uh, That's the thing also. In the undergrad that I did, no, because it's more theoretically focused.
Okay.
That's also, again, coming back to me pointing out the differences between choosing a biomed for the hospital like setting. You can have professional bachelor's undergrads that are focused to deliver you directly to the working field. And you have this also for biomedical science, let's say, but here in Belgium, it's called biomedical lab technology,
Mm.
and then you get more hands-on experience in the lab in the undergrad years. The most of my practical experience in the lab itself came in my master years, so in my grad years, where I had my
Okay.
thesis, where you're exposed into the lab in a research field and get to do actual experiments. It starts already a bit in year one of your masters, but the biggest chunk that you do yourself is in second master's year during your
Okay.
thesis.
Okay, so when you were mentioning like your foundation courses, it sounds like it's pretty much what BME is, and then you get
Okay.
into like the more specific like histology and molecular biology. Like those to me, okay, in the BME program, at least in the school that I go to, because like you mentioned, it's like different all across the world, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at least in the school that I went to, the way that they organize BME, it's like there's you can go through different tracks. One is like cellular and tissue engineering, which I think
Yeah.
would be
Yeah. Yeah.
probably the most similar to biomedical science. Then
Yeah. Yeah.
there's biomechanics,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's
Biosensors,
imaging.
optics,
Yes, it's
that
imaging and
stuff. Yeah.
nanotechnology. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's basically those three tracks, but they honestly don't mean anything. Like you still graduate with a BME degree and you can get the same kind of job with everything. It's just
Okay.
a matter of what you like. And honestly, there's like electives in the bio side, but you also have to take electives in the engineering side.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've heard this term, but they call BMEs kind of like the jack of all trades because it honestly is a major where you see very top level different subjects, but you don't really go in depth in many of
Okay.
them.
Okay.
So that might be a disadvantage for BME, but it can also be an advantage. Like it depends on how you see it. If you want to be highly
Yeah.
skilled on, you know, biology and cellular biology and
Mm-hmm.
microbiology, then
Mm-hmm.
I would say biomedical science sounds better because you get more exposure to learning
Yeah.
about the human body and
Yeah.
to a molecular level. Where in BME
Yeah.
you really don't. Like organic chemistry is an elective, molecular biology is an elective. Like they don't really make you take any of those classes.
Yeah.
And same
Yeah.
with the engineering side. It's like they tell you, do you want to take circuits or do you want to take a math course? So a
Okay.
lot of people in BME may graduate and they never get any experience to any exposure to electronics. So
Yeah.
you can
Okay.
graduate with an engineering degree and never touched an electrical device,
That
So
sounds weird.
yeah, it's crazy. But I mean that's how it is, and I think that's something that you have to be aware of if you're thinking of going into BME. That actually a lot of companies may prefer mechanical engineering
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're just more skilled in the engineering side.
Yeah.
But I think if you really have a passion for knowing more about the body and things like that, I
Hmm.
think biomedical engineering is good because you get to apply some engineering knowledge to biology or
Yeah.
medical problems.
Yeah.
But I think biomedical science definitely sounds more in depth, like knowledge. Or what would you
But
say?
yeah, it depends because I don't know if you've seen my video on which majors you can take, where I
Mhm.
elaborate also on the specific fields that you can choose more or less in your master years, at least in my university. Um, so it's also broad in a sense. You can go also into tissue engineering and stem cells. You can get into medical imaging and radiation things. You can get into genetics. You can get into immunology. You can get into the food science. Did I miss something? You can get into sport science, maybe. So what they also said in the beginning of the course, or they repeatedly said it also halfway through, let's say going from undergrad to grad, is that our education is meant to be flexible. So if we do our thesis in the immunology field with all of the base package that we have from the undergrad and general courses from the grad years, we should be able to quickly adapt and relearn stuff from, for instance, a cardiology field. So they really imposed a flexible mindset uh, in our course. And yeah, you can say that this is somewhat determinate for your future job if you're into immunology and you learn certain techniques that are very specific maybe for immunology. You can take that experience to launch into your first job where they ask for experience with that particular equipment. But that's also a bit how you, yeah, present yourself. If you maybe did your thesis in immunology but you didn't like it and you want to go in another field but you don't have the experience, you can always portray your interest in that other field and say how willing and hungry you are to learn those techniques on the job, for instance. And that can get you that job as well. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's terms of mindset and preparation on job hunting and all that type of stuff. So, what I would say is try to be a generalist with a little bit of specificity.
Yeah.
So,
That's a
using
good
like
point.
being, yeah, like being jack of all trades, it's like generalist versus specialist, right?
Hmm.
I'm also more of a generalist, I'd say,
Okay.
within the biomedical science field. I have preferences, of course. I like immunology, cancer biology, genetics, but to me, there's so much interesting. But you need to be specific. You need to have a specialism in something, but you cannot forget everything around it. And I take this through to life in as a whole because, yeah, like I said, at age 27, I was majorly into economics and finances, and I also dug into that, and now I'm applying these principles to my life in general. So yeah, it's never good to be too specialized in one thing and focus on one thing only. You uh, some are pro, some are con. So yeah, my
Yeah,
approach is to be generalistic as possible with a specialism, but not too many specialisms. Let's say.
that's true. Um, Actually, I want to answer this question because I had this question as well. It says,
Yeah,
"Did you get a master's?" Okay, I want to know why, because you got your master's right after your bachelor's, correct?
I got my master's right after my bachelor's. Yeah.
Why did you decide to do that?
Why?
Yes.
Okay. So again, maybe this is related to the difference between the professionally focused bachelor undergrad and the one in my university. Basically, with the undergrad training that I had at university, which was highly theoretical, it's rarely it rarely happened that someone stopped there and went to the job market. So my degree was actually structured in the sense that you should progress to the grad to the masters to
Mhm.
get real value out of your degree.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Um,
that's basically
so
why.
would you say that to get a job in, your field, it is kind of necessary to get a master's?
Um, at least, huh, not per se, not per se. At least
Okay.
it was like that in my university. So
Mhm.
if you start the course at my university or a biomedical science course that's research focused, you should comply all the way through. After 5 years, you have your master's. If you go for the biomedical lab technology kind of branch, then you're professionally focused, so you get more lab hand-on training, and then you can go into the job market. That's also an option. I have actually yesterday talked to an ex-colleague of mine. He's now a scientist at the biotech company where I used to work, and he only studied for 3 years. So he did the biomedical lab kind of thing. I think he's also 6 years older than me. Um, and he's now at a scientist level. So this is evidence that if you're ambitious and you're within a company, you can still grow.
Mhm.
So he got a job in biotech R&D. He could have gone into a hospital lab also. So that's a bit the difference. That's again what I want to highlight is if you choose a biomed course, check very carefully what the focus is. Is it to deliver you on the job market after 3 years with more skills, hands-on training in the lab, or is it more focused to go into the research branch where you have to like go through your masters to get real value out of it?
Mhm. Wow. Yeah. Actually, that's an interesting point because I feel like in my school, again, like it depends so highly on the school that you go to,
Hmm. Yeah.
but in my school, when I started BME, it seemed like all you could do with it was research. And I really believed that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like I like research, like I'll do research. And there's really no, like, I never knew about industry until
Hmm.
the very late stages. And it really was because I got an internship that I got to learn about industry. But
Hmm.
in school itself, I didn't really learn about it until probably my last year. So
Yeah.
it's just amazing how, you know, they I don't know why they have so much focus on like the research side, and they don't really tell students you can also work for a company, and it's also good to work at a company.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing
And
wrong with it.
that's why we're doing this, right?
Yes,
make,
yes,
make people
exactly.
aware make people aware of that, and that's it's a growing problem because indeed, like I said, my coursework in biomed was focused 60% actually of my classmates back in 2012 proceeded to a PhD, so a
Mm-hmm.
doctoral program. So that's again another 4 to 6 years of studying. But
Mm-hmm.
the difference is maybe that in Belgium you get paid like it's a first job.
Oh, okay.
um, But yeah, 60%, 6 out of 10, either because they don't know what other job options are open or they really want to do research. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's the point that I was going to say is that you get an overload of academically qualified people that
Yes.
have a PhD then, and maybe they're still thinking of continuing into research, doing postdocs, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
dreaming of professor tenure positions. And positions are declining everywhere. So you get an overload of graduates with research skills, but there's no job openings in academia. So at some point, even if it's after your master's or after your PhD, then you have to go search somewhere else. And then again, you come with the problem of, oh, what can I do in industry?
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to go into industry?
Ha. um, I kind of was forced, um, because, yeah, maybe this is not so clear. I mentioned this in few of my videos, but I'm actually doing now my second attempt at getting my doctoral degree.
Okay.
So I graduated in 2012. And I started a PhD right after in the lab where I did my thesis.
Okay.
But it was a first year scholarship, a 1 year scholarship that I got. But to complete a PhD, you need funding for, let's say, at least 4 years. So I had to go to Brussels with some big shots in a little room, defend my project, and I flunked. So I was super nervous. Yeah, I think I never sweated so much before in my life, except when maybe I'm training, but outside of a sports contest type of thing. Um, it was a bit of a sad story in the sense that my direct colleague was also my competition during that year. And she got her scholarship and I didn't. So I missed it by a half a mark and
Oh.
she had a half a mark more and she got in. So at that point, my chances of staying in academia and completing a PhD were almost next to nothing. I
Mhm.
think the professor at the time where I was doing the initial doctoral research was saying, "Oh, we can apply for a European grant, but it has a 6% rate of succeeding." And I was like, "Okay, I don't like mathematics that much anymore, but 6% success rate is like, that's not good, right?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, I then dove into the job market and I was lucky because this is also maybe something that I want to give to the audience listening right now. Networking. Sometimes it's not what you know, but who you know.
That's so true.
That's so true.
I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned in
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
path.
Yeah. Keep learning in that lesson and keep applying it because that will be ever so relevant even if you grow in your career. So the point was that there was a thesis, a grad student doing her master's, and after her master's, she went to that biotech company. And I was being forced to go to the job market, and she was already in that company. So I knew someone on the inside. Uh, on top of that, someone who graduated years before and had her doctoral degree in the same lab where I did my initial research also worked in that biotech company. So maybe to sketch a little bit, Belgium is not that big also. So you have a
Okay.
few hubs, and I'm from the west part of Flanders, so being the north of Belgium, and the closest hub for us is somewhere between the west and east Flanders suburb. How should you call it? Like states, more or less. If you would compare
Okay.
East Flanders and West Flanders with states in the US. So yeah, all signs point to that region. So being a very small community in Belgium, it's not so difficult to know people maybe on the inside in biotech. On the other hand, biotech is booming right now in Flanders in Belgium. We're very famous for our biotech knowledge and expertise, let's say. And that company that I worked for is also one of the lead companies in the field and transforming.
Nice.
So yeah. Um, what was the original question again? I
Why
told you,
did you
man.
go into industry?
Yeah.
But I think you answered the question pretty well. Um, so, well, someone is asking, what is your dream job in the field?
Well, maybe you answer this one first.
Okay. Honestly, for me, I think it's a tough question because I feel like I'm learning as I go. Right now in my internship, I'm a product development engineer or intern, and I really like that because at least from what I've seen in research, it's you kind of well when you work for a company, if you're in product development, you kind of work with all these departments like R&D,
Mhm.
quality, regulatory. You're kind of like the connection between all of them, and you get to oversee a project. So I think in the future I would love to be like a project manager or something.
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
mentioned to you that I am interested in the business side also. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's still a work in progress. I don't know where life is gonna take me.
Who
But
does?
yeah, right? Yeah, but as of now, I think that's what I'm leaning towards. But I'm really open to anything, and
Yeah.
I do have uh an interest in pursuing grad school later in my life. I mentioned to you that I think my plan right now is to go into industry right after my bachelor's, and then get to learn from the people around me, see what I like, what I don't like, and then
Mhm.
decide what kind of masters I should get. Because right now I don't really know, and I
Yeah.
have considered grad school before, but I just feel like, okay, you please answer this question, because, or from
Okay.
your experience, because I don't really
Okay.
know the answer. I feel like getting a PhD is for people who want to do research. Is that true?
Um, let I was going to pick in on where you said that you wanted to be a project manager, or you see yourself in that kind of thing, and that you are also interested in the business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're focused on business only, you don't need a PhD per se. You don't need it. You can focus on business skills, MBA type of stuff. Project management wise, also, I think there were also people who didn't have a PhD who were project managers at my former biotech company.
Okay.
PhD is it's indeed a training in research, but you gain a lot of other soft skills as well, like the networking, like planning, like there's tons of stuff that you learn. And actually, I'm going to maybe promote some channel right now that that is focused on highlighting those skills. And it's called Cheeky Scientist. I don't know if you've heard about this channel before,
I've never
Mary.
heard. No.
To anyone watching, you should check that out if you're right now doing a PhD and you're kind of also like feeling stuck where you could end up in which job positions. I think his name is Isaiah Hankel. He's also a PhD graduate, and he's focused like us to deliver more insight on graduates to get them into the business, into the
Oh, wow.
into industry actually. Um, so being a PhD graduate sets you up with a lot of soft skills that you can apply in business, in yeah, in industry throughout. So yeah, do you need to do a PhD per se? No. Will it get you a higher salary perhaps? Maybe yes. Can you get more easily into a higher management position? Yes. If you don't have a PhD and you want to grow within a company, could you more easily hit a certain ceiling? Yes, depending on how ambitious you are. I don't think, or hardly think, they will let you become a CSO, which is already very high up,
Yeah.
with only a bachelor's degree. I don't think you can do that.
Okay.
So if you're that ambitious, you should get a PhD. Also, yeah, CSO is Chief Scientific Officer, so there you need those research skills. If you
Mm.
want to become COO, Operating Officer, or CTO, Technical Officer, then maybe you don't need those research skills and you can focus more on the management and business skills separately.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
So why? Okay, I guess I have two questions. Why did you decide now, after your industry experience, to still do a PhD, and what do you see yourself doing with it? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there were many factors that I took into consideration for deciding to go back to academia. So first of all, uh, I definitely need to mention that it's not my focus to stay in academia.
Okay.
So given, as I explained, that research positions or tenure tracks in professor type of stuff, uh, I'm working now for a professor. It's her first year, so she's my PI. Maybe it's because it's her first year, but the stress levels are super high, more than anything that I have seen in industry. Maybe it's her also a bit. I think she will grow into it, but if I look at that as an example, I'm thinking, I don't want that career. I still want a bit of a life. So yeah. On
Do
the
they
other,
stress about grants and things like that?
yeah, but that's the whole thing about academia is
Yeah.
basically she's yeah you have the teaching component, then you have the grant asking, and then there's so much time going into asking money to do your actual research that you lose so much time in actually guiding the students and thinking about the projects and the science part of it. And that's a trend you see in academia globally, everywhere. That's a huge problem. But that's political because, yeah, you have an increasing amount of graduates within science fields, but there's a finite amount of tax money that goes to research, and there's a finite amount of positions in academia. So, yeah, what do you do about it? It's a political issue, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So, no, I'm not focused. I'm here to actually go through a decent period of research to have the experience. I was very sad to forcefully have to leave my initial PhD project. So it's a bit of taking revenge, maybe also on academia.
I guess
I describe,
maybe
I
like
guess,
proving yourself that you can actually do it.
yeah, yeah. Also, I think also you have this. I think many people have this romantic idea about doing a PhD. Oh, it's the struggle and you're. I'm kind of like describing this maybe also in my about section on my channel. Uh, how do I describe it? I think failed PhD student currently slashing his way to the doctoral jungle or academic jungle or something, like very metaphoric. But that's what how I picture it maybe. Um, but yeah, taking revenge maybe a bit, gaining the soft skills. I said this to myself. It's not so much the thesis that counts, but the person with the skills that comes out of the thesis, because it's still a study. It's revenge of the Fireman. Good one. We should make a video on that. Uh, with like zombie apocalypse and stuff like that, and then where I throw some DNA plasmids to the zombies, and then the whole world is saved.
Does this have to do anything with the coronavirus, Kevin?
Um, I kind of, um, I kind of was. Maybe you noticed my. Yeah, I like martial arts. Martial arts, right? You know this.
Oh yes, I saw
I,
your video.
I do taekwondo. I have some samurai swords right here. So if you've ever watched The Walking Dead, you have Michonne, so the black girl with the katana slashing the heads off of the zombies. So if there was ever a time where I hoped to use my katana, it would have been now during the Corona crisis. But it turns out you don't get zombie-like features. So yeah,
Actually, glad it's not that kind of
no,
virus.
no, no, me also. But yeah, fantasy-wise, yeah,
Like,
let's do it in custody. So yeah, so I'm focused on getting back into industry after the PhD, and
nice.
I want the experience of going through a proper phase of research because research is exciting. It is a bit romantic. It can, yeah, kick you in the back really hard if you need a large amount of luck also maybe with your project, with your PI, stuff like that, with your grants, your networking. There's many stories where PhDs fail, where they have mental issues, they have problems. So that's the downside of the romantic idea. So the yeah, not the upside, and it's harsh reality also. I don't experience this right now because my project, at least the first experiment or the paper that I'm writing, is descriptive, while maybe some other projects could focus on testing a therapy, a certain therapy in a mouse model. So it either works or it doesn't. If it doesn't work, you have negative results. No one wants to publish negative results.
Mhm.
So that's not so easy to get rid of in terms of, but you need publications for your PhD thesis to graduate. So yeah, it's a trade-off in terms of what you're researching. So to anyone considering a PhD, make sure you check out who the PI is, what his personality is like. Try to get in touch with PhD students that are already there. Get as much information on how the person is like. Is he friendly? Is he considerate? Is he really trying to uplift you as a researcher, to train you, or is he just interested in using you as a cheap labor person who puts out research papers for his resume to build with publications? So there's a huge difference in that. So that's one attention point. Second is, apart from picking a project that you would like, try to assess if the project is feasible, if it's transforming, if it's worthwhile, does it have an impact on the biomedical field, and could it help towards helping patients in the far future, let's say. So be very considerate on this. So the fact that I'm doing the second attempt now at my PhD, I had the luxury, more or less, let's say, to pick a field that I actually wanted to, whereas the first attempt was actually a continuation of my thesis. And by chance, that led me to the biotech job because it was based on that technology. It was nanobodies, so that's kind of antibody, next generation antibody technology. So yeah, like you said, you don't know where life takes you.
Yeah.
I'm glad it took me there because I met great people in biotech industry. The technology was great. I gained a lot of experience. But the fact that I'm researching now on the gut liver axis, and the liver, to me at least, is one of the most fascinating organs in the body. So I got to choose to do research on an organ that I like very much. So
Wow.
yeah, it's just some considerations for people trying to get into a PhD program or considering it. So I
Yeah.
think we
No.
rest again there, but yeah, maybe valuable information for anyone who's watching.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Those are really good points, and I think people, a lot of people I think in BME are interested in doing PhD. So those are really good points to take into consideration before. So when you go back to industry after your PhD,
Yeah,
what do you see yourself doing, or what is your dream job
yeah,
with it?
yeah. My dream job. Um, hmm. So I released a video recently on medical science liaison. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
building more or less, let's say, an array of videos on different job functions and try to explain them. And I think you mentioned this also in your channel or your video somewhere, that as you try to gather information about jobs to portray them to the students that are now in BME or BMS, you also learn about these jobs yourself because you have to get the information right. So when I researched medical science liaison, this was very interesting to me. That would be my second choice. Why? Because I would very much like to stay in research. I see myself most likely as an R&D scientist, um, mainly because of the affinity with research. I think research is definitely something that I'm made for. Um, and then medical science liaison is still close to research, but it also involves a lot of networking, in the sense that you get to go to the actual physicians in the field. So take, for instance, a medical problem. Someone like liver tumors, hepatocellular carcinoma. Not many drugs are very effective. It's a very difficult tumor to target. And you get to go to the doctors and see their experience with which therapies work and don't. You take that information back to the biotech company that you work for, and there you relay the science so that you can start a project where the company develops a product to target it. So basically, you're kind of the prospector, initiator, like maybe in military terms, you're in recon, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
a bit like that. So that's still being very close to the science and then bringing it back. So yeah, that's also very fascinating. And then R&D scientist is where you actually get involved in, yeah, doing research on the project products and delivering them from the very start. So that would be my dream job, in some sort of still research like function or stay close to research.
Nice. Well, that sounds great.
What about you?
Well, I think the project manager thing, I think I could see myself doing that. I mean, I think it would be maybe too ambitious. I'm not sure, but I think it'd be cool to one day also have my own medical device and just create a company out of it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
something like that. But honestly, I've been considering doing like this YouTube thing full time also.
Oh,
If I
really?
ever got, yeah, if I ever had the opportunity, like I
Yeah,
would
sure. Why
love
not?
to create like a platform that's big enough to like, I mean, not only YouTube, right? Like right now it's purely YouTube, really, but I think it could eventually evolve to something that's greater and that you could collaborate with companies, act as a recruiter,
Yeah,
or teach kids, students, it's just something to raise awareness of STEM
yeah,
and
yeah,
engineering, biomedical degrees, just things in that
yeah.
like
Sure,
biotech
sure.
field would be really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. You like we've said, you never know where life takes you, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we don't know where this will end up for both our channels. Maybe yeah, it opens a lot of opportunities in terms of, like I said, the importance of networking. I don't know if you regard had a look at my featured channels. So doing research on YouTube, searching, just typing in biomedical research or biomedical science or biomedical engineering. I go on prospecting videos that are released. So I'm actively hunting what's going on YouTube. That's how I came across you and those other people. And that's also a bit of networking. So to me, it's also very cool that I'm now talking live to someone who's halfway around the world
I
and
know.
we're
It's
sharing the same interest. I have someone in David from Ireland. Then there's the German guy from Life Lab Learner. Yeah, PhD stories, a guy in a university more in the East Coast. And then there's Vera from PhD Coffee Time. She's actually in France, but
wow.
she's from Hong Kong. So the international thing about this online stuff is it's also really cool. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
amazing.
By the way, you're not on my featured channels yet, so we'll make a change in that after this
Yeah,
podcast.
I'll definitely. I don't think I have anyone in my future because I've honestly never thought of it. But yeah, we'll definitely have to put each other there now.
Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
so I think we pretty much covered everything in the outline. I think now we should look at the comments that people are saying. I saw a couple of
Yeah.
good ones. Adrian, do you want to display them so we know which ones to answer? Okay, so Virgil said, I used to watch. I think he's trying to say my name, right? It truly inspired me to pursue into BME. Nice. Well, awesome. Thank you. That
Cool.
means a lot. Um, and then, hi, I'm really inspired by your channel. Oh, the full comment is not displaying, but that's fine.
Oh,
She said, mm,
Well, it's okay. You don't.
thank you for helping us out. So, which one should I choose? BME or biomedical science?
ah,
uh,
You answered that already.
it's up to you. I think I think we covered
yeah,
the
yeah,
both sides. Do
yeah, true. I'd say it's yeah. Um, I think if you're more like a techie, maybe if you're
that's
more into tech, like medical devices and robotics and like prosthetics that like these robotic arms from Terminator or something like that, then you're biomedical engineering more.
yes.
If you're more into like DNA and cellular level stuff, like CRISPR-Cas, gene editing, and mouse model preclinical testing, then I'd say biomedical science.
That's a
Um,
good point. I want to say that if I think if you're confused, it kind of sounds to me, at least, that BME is a good, safe choice because with BME you could still go into research and work in, what you just mentioned, but you also have the option of going into devices. Whereas
yeah,
if you do biomedical science, you will get more knowledge on, you know, I don't know, proteins and stuff. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, you'll get more knowledge in that, but you won't have any exposure to devices. So
Less, yeah. Well, maybe also mention that at least this is the case in my university, or maybe in Flanders as a whole. I don't know how it is in the US, but you can comment on this later. So it's relatively easy to switch between majors going from undergrad to grad. Um, in some cases, you might need to take an extra year, but that's only a year. So if your interest starts in BME, and you're like, oh, it's too much robotics and things like that. Maybe you already have a good basis with anatomy, physiology. You take a gap year where you study the courses that you need to amp up towards a grad in biomedical science, and then you can make the switch. And this is general in life sciences as a whole. You can do an undergrad in pharmacy, for instance, take the gap year, do a master's in biomedical science. You can do an undergrad in biomedical science. Oh, I thought biotechnology and biochemistry was more my thing. You switch to that in a grad year. So there's a lot of options to intertwine. And that's what I also mentioned in the video, is that there's a lot of overlap, and the very specific focus, that's where it differs. And you can categorize largely science and engineering apart, but still there's overlap. So
yeah,
you can group it's terms of in terms of levels of specificity, I'd say. Yeah, so I understand why this is hard, probably for some people to make the final decision, because
yeah,
yeah, you're 18 years old and you think, oh, what should I do with the rest of my life? And then you're sitting there, yeah, it's Saturday night, you want to party but still want to get on with your life, stuff like that. I understand. So it's not easy, it's not easy.
yeah.
uh,
And I want to say that I think what the viewers are doing, which is looking up on YouTube people that are doing what they're interested in. That's a good way to find out. Like, look at the channels. Watch
yeah.
Kevin's videos, watch my videos, and see, do I see myself doing this or do I see myself doing that? Yeah, it's up to everyone's like interest and also what they see themselves doing in the future. But it is a tough decision to make. Okay.
I see a question specifically for me
Yes.
from
Yeah.
Carol. Looking back, what is something you think you would have done different? What would I have done different? Um, I would have tried to keep more calm during the interview in Brussels so that I would get my PhD directly, maybe. So, on the other hand, yeah, I'm at a good position where I am now, still doing the PhD quest. I think I didn't mention this, but I think you had it in the outline also, Mary. What my advice would be for
Yes.
for the path to follow. Did we cover this in depth?
No, we didn't actually. I
No.
think we talked about each other's path, but we didn't
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
talk
So
about the
yeah,
advice.
so given the fact that I'm 30 years old, I'm doing a PhD. PhD is stressful. So maybe you're 30 years old and you can already have maybe a family, or you want to settle down more in terms of career wise. Um, let's say it like this: what would I have done differently is maybe stay less than 5 years in biotech before going back to a PhD. If you graduate and then consider going to grad school, but maybe first get some experience in industry, do it like max 2 years or something. Then you have that experience, you take it to grad school, and then your chances of getting hired after grad school will probably be increased because you already have that industry experience. What you get to hear a lot is that if you're fresh out of school, you don't have experience yet, but that's a paradox that many employers ask. Oh, we want someone with experience, but yeah, you just came out of school, so how can you build experience? You need to get hired first, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of getting to grad school, especially a PhD, I think it might benefit from for you if you don't stay too long in industry initially, uh, to go back to start that PhD, because once you're, yeah, too old, let's say, maybe you'll get in trouble with your personal life.
Yeah, no, actually, I guess answering that same question on advice on a career path, I always thought I wanted to do a master's or a PhD right after my bachelor's because I kind of just wanted to get it over with. And I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, and also you get paid more with more, you know,
Yeah,
education. So
yeah.
that's what I had in mind. But after getting some industry experience, I talked to, my boss, and which they have like 30 years of experience, and they really, everyone, and this is crazy, everyone I've talked to, and obviously everyone has different opinions, but at least everyone
Hmm.
I have talked to has said, do your bachelor's, go to industry for a couple of years, see what you like, and then
Hmm.
go to grad school. Grad school
Yeah.
is amazing. It will help you, if you say like have a higher slope, I guess,
Hmm.
in your career success or promotional.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It opens up more
yes,
opportunities, perhaps. If you want to get, for instance, to that CSO level that I
yeah,
mentioned, yeah,
definitely,
you should do the grad school thing for
yes.
sure.
But yeah, they said taking a few years and going into industry, if that's something that you're interested on,
Yeah, yeah.
is it can be worth it. And also, someone mentioned, I'm sure this is different in different countries, but someone mentioned to me that um, doing a master's right after bachelor's and then going into industry, it's not really like, if you compare someone who does bachelor's, gets experience in industry, and then masters, to someone that does, I guess what you did, bachelor's, master's industry. If
Yeah.
you do the financial analysis,
Ah,
you
yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
end up making more if you have that industry gap in between.
Okay. Yeah.
Because here, at least here, masters are very expensive. I don't know how
I
it is in
I
Belgium.
know, I know. I think I was about to touch up on that. And I know for a fact that going to college in the US is like a major thing because it's so expensive, student loan
Yes,
type of things. So Belgium has a very good social security.
that's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah. Actually, studying for me wasn't that expensive at all.
Wow.
Also, I didn't have student housing or anything
Okay.
because I had to take a train, and in like half an hour I was at university from where I live. Like I said, Belgium is not that big. Um, what can I also say? The tuition fee was also like less than 1,000 euros. Maybe in my specific case,
Per
uh,
semester?
no, 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 per year.
What?
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh
we
my
also
gosh.
uh,
So, what you guys need to know from this video, go to Belgium to study.
well,
Seriously.
maybe any European country, perhaps. If
Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's true. Anywhere but the
uh,
US.
yeah, but I think it's crazy, and I see this a lot on if I see, yeah. Also, touching up on going into industry, I think the difference is also if you balance out going to grad school and being paid a stipend. What's it called? Stipend.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, you would get much more money if you would get into industry. But I think what the US lacks in terms of social security, it makes good for in terms of less taxes, I think,
I honestly, I have no idea. Like,
and less taxes as a company. So you get paid more, I think, because like salaries, for instance, the medical science liaison video that I did, the fourth highest paying job in the US is MSL, medical science liaison. Some starting salaries can start, this will blow you massively, 130K a year starting salary. But yeah,
wow.
to get into an MSL position, you need to have some sort of track beforehand. You don't become an MSL just like that.
Yeah.
Um, so that's in terms of starting salary. So that's a huge amount. And I went to look for salaries of MSLs in Europe, and there I only got up to like say max 80.
Okay.
or more of a senior thing. So there's a difference maybe there. So what you guys lack in social security, you can maybe in some job functions make up for in terms of higher salaries, and then we pay more taxes to have better social security, and then yeah, it's politics, of course. So,
Yeah.
but it's amazing how expensive it is to study, and I can imagine this is a threshold for many families in the US. To
Definitely.
scratch a bit, maybe some personal stuff on my background. I grew up with my grandparents, so I was actually on more or less of a reduced tuition fee also actually.
Mm.
So I'm a bit of a social case, let's say,
Okay.
but I turned out fine. I had a great upbringing at my grandparents' house. They were very flexible and allowed me to be curious and the kid that does well in school, but also likes to go party. And so yeah, I'm grateful for them for picking
Mm.
me up in the house and giving me the morals and the ethics that I took from them. But yeah, to be honest, without the social security system that we have here, I think it would not have been feasible for them to also pay up the rest for me to study. So I have a lot to thank to the Belgian state, for instance, and to my grandparents to be able to have studied biomedical science in general. So I want to praise every parent in the US who gives it their all to make their kids go to college, because that's very noble.
Yeah. Honestly, most people I think do end up with student loans. I've been very blessed that
Yeah.
I thankfully don't have any student loans. But if I went for a master's, I think the master I was looking at is like 30,000 in total. I think for the full master's, which is like 2 years.
What is included in that cost? So I mean, you have like access to the professors and the classrooms. Then you
Hmm.
have books to study. Then
No, no. The
courses.
books are a part. Yeah, no. Professors here, books you have to pay on your own.
What?
Um, Also,
What?
housing is on your own.
You
Um,
have to pay
and
to be able to
also,
do your homework.
what? Oh yeah, and then sometimes some professors decide that online classes or online methods of turning in homeworks are nice, but then you have to pay for that also.
Are
So
you kidding me? Holy shit!
no. Yeah, it's crazy.
30 grand for a grad, so that's 15K a year. I,
Yeah.
I don't,
Honestly, like
without
yeah, when I
housing,
saw your
you have to pay your own food, so you don't get
yeah.
a voucher for the cafeteria or anything,
Oh
or
no. I mean, you
so
could, but you have to pay for it.
this is purely access to the courses you're talking.
Yeah, it's I mean, if the school has a gym or a library or counseling services, they'll give you that. But no one really uses that. And yeah, it was actually really funny because I saw your what I have on my bookshelf video,
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
like, if someone in the US saw that, they'd probably think you're a millionaire by how many books you have. Because
Ah,
here in the US, it's all about PDFs now. Like, no
okay.
one really buys books because they're so expensive. See, that's like $1 million right there.
But yeah, I didn't buy that many books during, as I explained in the video, because we also got a lot of printouts.
Hmm.
So yeah, back in 2007, I think the digital learning thing wasn't as evolved yet.
Hmm.
Um, Nowadays, there's also much more to do online, like recorded video courses that I hear my PI talk about. Um, but yeah, I have like one, two, three, four books that I bought during my studies, and these are indeed more on the expensive side. Let's say on average, $100 a book,
Hmm.
something like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, to me these are nice to have, and I use these as I explained in the video. I really use these except for one. So yeah, if you want to check out the video, you can always. Um, but 15K a year, I don't know what to say. That, that's crazy. That's
Yeah,
like
but PhDs are funded though. If you choose to go for a PhD, they fully fund you.
Okay.
But a master's you have to pay for.
Okay, okay. Oh, okay. But yeah, then that's also maybe a thing is that in the US it's more easy to go directly from an undergrad to a PhD program. This
Mm-hmm.
is something we don't have in Belgium. You have to do 5 years of study, so you have to do your bachelor's, your master's, and only if you have your master's, you're allowed to do a PhD.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I know in the UK, they also, depending on which university, I think this is the same for the US, depending on which university. But if you are allowed to proceed to a PhD program directly after your undergrad, mostly this is like a tweaked, let's say, master's, where actually the master courses are integrated into the PhD program. So you get like a 5 year program PhD with courses, master courses maybe in 2 years, and then your 3 years of research in PhD. Because
Hmm.
PhD in the UK or in the US is like 3 years, 3, 4 years.
Yeah.
Typically in Belgium, there was a culture of PhDs being prolonged because let's say you get funding mostly for 4 years. You need to complete, if you can, within 4 years, but in a lot of cases, it's not feasible. So you get a startup scholarship, and then you get the big money for the 4 years. And then some people perhaps still need some additional money to finish up some revision of an article, do some small additional experiments to get them published, and then to write their thesis. So that's like, yeah, 3 times applying for money. So we're moving away from that culture also because it's expensive. It's a bigger load on the PIs to grant write and ask for money. So for me also the pressure is high now because I need to be completed within 4 years. But yeah, I'm highly motivated, maybe, and
Yes.
so far so good. So I think I'll make it. So
Of course
um,
you will.
thanks. Do you have any
Okay.
more questions?
Yes, actually, I think yeah, this one,
Uh,
Kevin. So, being a BME master, do you get to research on this current situation of COVID-19, or is it something related to a completely different field?
My research, okay, my research is totally not virology. My major in biomedical science, so in my master years, was immunology and infection. So I have a background on bacteria, viruses, vaccines, and the immune system and how it gets disrupted in immunopathologies. But my research now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing research on one of my favorite organs, which is the liver. It's yeah, coming back again to the jack of all trades type of thing, generalist type of stuff. The liver is your generalist organ. It has so many functions. It's fascinating. Okay, some people will directly say, "Oh, the brain is the most fascinating organ because yeah, it's so mysterious." But basically, all it does is send signals to your the rest of your body. But the liver is doing, yeah, it's a way of looking at it. So also, if you ask some doctors, like specialists, a cardiologist will say, "Oh, the heart is the most interesting." So a gastroenterologist will say the gut, and the hepatologist, of course, the liver. So I'm being an experimental hepatologist. It's very fascinating. If you will follow my channel, I think I will be releasing. It's all about the liver. It's all about the liver. Yeah. I will be releasing a video on my research in more depth. I think this is interesting for me to try to communicate because this is also difficult. A lot of times, PhDs get so into their project and their jargon that it becomes more and more difficult to explain it to the general public in layman terms. So that's really challenging for a
Yeah.
PhD project to get that into the public. So I'll try this on my channel. So if you want to know more about my research, stay tuned on my channel. What I will say for now, it's involving the gut and the liver. So your gut and liver are intertwined very closely, functionally and anatomy-wise. And I'm looking at immune cell subsets, macrophages, how they function in a disrupted gut-liver axis in primary sclerosing cholangitis, which is a rare disease of the liver where the bile ducts actually start to get fibrotic and they get more and more constricted to a point that in a course of up to 20 years, people have completely blocked maybe the flow of bile from the liver to the gut. And then you get cirrhosis and all its complications. So it's a progressive disease and there's no cure. That's very interesting. There's no cure whatsoever pharmacologically except for a liver transplant. And you know, liver transplants, organ transplants, that's difficult. That's a difficult subject. Livers to be transplanted are scarce. You need to be, yeah, you basically need to be lucky that someone maybe young dies in a car accident and then still has an intact liver and then it can rush to the hospital. So there's a huge burden on that. Interesting to pick up on that is where maybe biomedical engineering comes in also, the tissue engineering part. If you can make artificial organs and liver is maybe perhaps an easier one to make in vitro in culture tubes or start from there. This is also very fascinating research where you can decrease the burden of liver transplant organs. So yeah, I'm into macrophage biology, the gut-liver axis, and um, autoimmune liver disease. That's my research.
Awesome. Um, okay. Is there a difference between medical and biomed sciences?
Let's say no. Again, semantics. So you have like medical biology, you can have medical science, you can have medical lab technology, you can have biomedical science, you can have biomedicine. Basically, these are more or less all the same. Um, so medical science are, let's say, the medical sciences are a subset of courses that you get in a medicine education if you want to become a doctor, and you get them in biomedical education. So typical medical sciences are physiology, anatomy, um, 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 genetics, perhaps. Um, these are more medical focused. So then you have molecular biology and biochemistry. These are biotech, biochem focused. So it's a term of semantics. I don't know if there's any course that exists if you can study an undergrad in medical sciences. At least in Belgium, it's not the case. But I think this falls under the umbrella term of biomedical sciences as well. Again, semantics. It's sometimes very confusing.
Yeah.
Because biomedical engineering, if you look it up on Wikipedia and you compare it with biological engineering or bioengineering, that's also an engineering thing, then the biomedical engineering is actually listed as a subfield of biological engineering. And then you have tissue engineering, which is maybe more into biomedical science or overlaps with biomedical engineering. Then you have genetic engineering, which is something that if you study biomedical science and you use recombinant DNA technology, like you insert the gene into a plasmid to make that into expression in a bacterial vector product-like system, then you're basically cloning. So you're cutting with DNA and you're inserting a piece of DNA into a round circular piece of DNA to insert the protein that you want to be expressed. Basically, you're engineering this DNA. So semantics, it's often where's the fine line, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's really up to the school you go to also
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they can have
definitely,
different focuses. Yeah,
definitely.
it's I see a couple of questions asking about the difference in taking BME in US, Canada, Australia versus India. I honestly don't know much about that. I don't think I could answer that question. But do you know anything, like if there's any difference between biomedical science in the UK from India?
Actually, no.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
tough question.
yeah, and I get a lot of questions, let's say, from foreigners,
Yeah,
and it's indeed difficult to extrapolate the things you have here in Belgium or in the US to other countries.
yeah,
Um, what they're mostly concerned about, what I get asked a lot is in terms of job opportunities, and there it depends also on how big your government invests in research in biotech. For instance, to become a biomedical researcher and do a postdoc somewhere in an African country, for instance, that seems very hard because the government over there probably doesn't invest that much into research, so you have less open positions. And that's what you see globally. A lot of people are looking to study in the US or in Europe because they have more opportunities there. It's
hmm,
just as simple as that.
yeah.
So yeah, major differences between countries, of course, definitely.
Yeah, no, and it's actually really interesting because I have noticed too that a lot of the viewers are from India or Middle Eastern
Hmm.
countries. And one thing that I must admire from them is how much passion they have for learning. I've had so many
Yeah,
people in like eighth grade, like eighth to 12th grade, and they're like, what can I study before going into BME? And I'm like, calm down, like you don't need to study yet. Like, and
yeah,
but that's amazing that, you know, they take their education very seriously. And
yeah,
yeah, like I think, like Kevin said, maybe there's more job opportunities in the US or the UK. And I think the companies can see that, and they do hire a lot of foreign people every now and then.
yeah. I think I'd say if you're in a country like India, for instance, maybe you should ask yourself if you're willing to move maybe within the country
Mm.
to where there is a hub of pharmaceutical companies or biotech companies or startups in a science hub next to a university. I have no idea about the university landscape in countries like India, for instance, but maybe there's only a few in like big cities like New Delhi or anything. Um, yeah, it depends. Like I said, I'm lucky here in Belgium. It's fairly small. The US has a lot of hubs, but distances are also larger there, I think. Or
Yeah.
I know, but yeah, you should try to figure out if you're willing to move or travel long. And if you decide to go into biotech, biomed, yeah, you should think about the job opportunities. If you're willing to move to Europe to get a decent job or anything, these are things if you're in that country, you should really think about carefully,
Mhm.
of course.
Definitely. Okay. Well, I think this is. Uh, oh yeah, that's
Oh,
another
uh,
question. I'm trying to
uh,
find the full question.
That's at the very bottom.
Do y'all think that after the virus blows over, that biomedical engineering, biomedical science are going to be more recognized as well as having more job openings?
well, uh, let me start. I kind of hope so because I
Definitely.
was also thinking that I would release a video in the near future on a specific job is virologist. And I think this will be very interesting because a lot of people now, young kids, are experiencing the negative impact of a virus like this spreading, the danger that it has. And if you're into life science or biomedical science, biomedical engineering, life science field, you might be triggered by this whole circumstance of COVID-19 to get into it and perhaps prevent future things like this by doing research into viruses or making some devices to more easily track viruses in the engineering part. So I do think there will be an increased interest to get into life sciences. At least that's what I'm hoping. But yeah, you shouldn't get into it just because COVID-19 fucked up your birthday party, of course. So, swear on this podcast? Because pardon my French.
It's okay.
Okay.
No, yeah, I agree. I think, people are very susceptible to like being influenced by what's going on in the world. Like
Yeah.
society is very easily influenced, but I can definitely see a boom in interest in virology,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely a very interesting field. Actually, my sister is a biology major. She's still in college, but I've kind of like been pushing her to kind of go like the virology side. I don't even know why,
Okay.
but she's always been interested in like working with monkeys, like primates or like chimpanzees.
Okay.
And I feel like virologists get a lot of exposure to that because testing. But yeah, I think it's a very immunology is a very like beautiful field. So yeah,
Yeah, it is. It is. It's booming also.
yeah,
Immuno-oncology is one of
yes.
the latest fields, for instance, and we're way past in terms of cancer treatments. We're way past chemotherapy and only radiation and surgery. So these are three, let's say, baseline standard line therapies. But the immuno-oncology is booming. It's basically how you can say, because at each point we're creating cancer within our bodies. You and I have cancer cells within our bodies right now. If the cancer breaks through and you get a tumor and you get metastasis eventually, perhaps, that's when your immune system failed to clean up those erratic cells. So immuno-oncology is focusing on boosting your immune system to again fight those cells. That's a very interesting field. Inflammation also involves immunology. Immunology is kind of like a very large intertwined thing within biomedical sciences as a whole. It's really definitely one of the base courses, and that's why I also have the book that I just showed, immunobiology. That's a big one.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, so I think the last question we're going to answer.
Yeah,
That
we're
will.
kind of going over a final
Yeah,
amount of time, I think.
I
No?
know. Yeah, it's almost 2 hours, so I think we
Ah,
have to cut it soon, guys.
yeah,
But thank you all for being here and being so
yeah.
active.
Thanks a
But
lot.
the last question is, and they're asking for BME tips, but I think honestly, any advice that we give is really it can really work for anyone, whether they're biomedical engineer or biomedical science.
Mhm.
So do you have any final advice to people that most of our viewers I think are undergrads, so just like going through college, do you have any advice?
Going through college, I'd say don't panic. Things will work out in the end. Um, you're now at a point where your mind is fixed on this point, and you shouldn't worry too much about the future. Um, and if you fuck up in some way, you can still make up for it. Like I didn't get to complete my PhD, but I'm back on track right now. So like I say in one of my videos, you're the captain of your boat. You're the driver of your career. You can decide at any point if you want to change something that you don't like. You can. I think you have. I believe you have the power to change your course that you're on for the better. And yeah, stay interested. Stay studying. Study hard. If there's enough passion, then this will go automatically. And yeah, good luck with your future, of course.
That's awesome advice, and I totally agree with what you said that everything is going to be okay in the end because I know that every time you have a hard class, it just feels like there's no way you can finish and pass it, and it just seems impossible. And you always look back and you're like, whoa, I did that, and I finished my bachelor's, I finished my master's. You're doing your PhD now. In the future, I'm sure you're going to look back and be like, hey, I did that.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, it's true. It's true. And if you don't meet some certain standards, I'm going to get, I think, philosophical here. But if a weight let's say if a weight on your back is heavy, don't wish for a lighter back on your back, back on your like weight. I'm fucking this up. So the point being is that you should not ask for a lighter burden, but you should ask for a stronger back. So you should
Nice.
train harder.
That's amazing. No, that's very true. That is awesome, and that's how you get to develop as not only a professional but as a person. You know, it's all about
Yeah,
learning
yeah,
over
yeah,
time. I think
yeah,
my last advice, and you also touched on this, is networking is like
yeah,
your
yeah,
lifeboat. Like it's gonna take you places that you didn't think it could take you. You could be super smart and know all your books, but the right person will take you to the right place. So it's really important
yeah.
to network.
Yeah, and yeah, again, philosophical maybe. Uh, Hard work beats talent,
That's true. Yeah,
and
that
that's
is true.
it.
Okay. Thank you for this amazing session. Really helped out. Shristi, yes, we remember you, Shristi. Keep up with it, and Kevin too. Really want to be like you guys someday. Aw, that's
Oh,
sweet.
thanks.
Thank you guys. And so I think this is it for this podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you, Kevin. It was amazing,
yeah,
and
it was a fun experience. We should do this again.
I know. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like there's so
Or-
many more things that we could talk about, but we don't want to have a 5 hour long video. Like,
Yeah, yeah, we should definitely split this up. Perhaps one day I can take a plane to San Antonio after
hey,
COVID
yeah,
19.
that would be. We'll go to you.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That would be
that's.
amazing.
I have no idea what's available to do in culture wise in San Antonio. It's Texas, right? So it's the biggest state
Yeah,
of.
it
So
is
I'm
in Texas.
kind of biased, like thinking about burgers, cowboys, and
Tacos.
Because it's a very like Mexican influenced city,
okay.
so you'll
But
definitely
a lot of
you'll
German.
definitely see like US and Mexico in one place. So
I
German.
like burritos. I like tacos. I like
we also
Mexican
have
food.
some German influence, so you might see some
Really?
familiarity here. I'm not sure.
Okay, cool.
But I actually saw that Belgium has like it's really great on like architecture and things like that.
Yeah, medieval knight
Oh yeah,
type of
medieval. Right.
castles. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that sounds really interesting.
And
Um,
the city that I live in or live close to, Bruges. You know the movie with Colin Farrell in Bruges.
no, I
Well,
don't.
if you want to see my city, in Bruges by Wolf, you liked it, the movie probably in Bruges. It's more of a detective kind of like dark humor, cynical kind of thing. But yeah, there was a big running around by Hollywood movie being shot in our town, and this was already from 2009. So if you want to get a
Wow.
first glimpse of the romantic city that's called Bruges, you should watch the movie with Colin Farrell.
How do you
For
spell the city? BR.
in Bruges, so IN
Oh,
space UGES.
okay. That's not how I was imagining it, but that's good. Okay.
In Bruges.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us and being here and asking your questions. We're gonna end the live session right here, but we'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Got it.